Chapter 5. When Jimmy met Joyce. When Jimmy met Joyce, it was hardly the stuff of romantic comedy. They were both just 16 years old. Dad was a street smart lad about town, with a job, money, and was driving around in a car, even though he didn't have a licence. He was playing in a rock band and leading an independent life. Mum was a bored, frustrated teenager, embarrassed about living at home with an older mother and father the same age as her friend's grandparents. As the weeks progressed, their friendship developed. My mum and her pals would go and visit my dad when his aunt was out. It was somewhere to socialise, free from the glare of watchful parents, a convenient place where they could chat freely, play music and enjoy an illicit drink. Conversely, my mum would invite my dad home and he would get a chance to sit down at a dinner table and join in the kind of family activities he had never experienced before, like sitting as a group to watch television and just talking about everyday things without it all flaring up into an argument. After just a few weeks of going steady, my mum decided she wanted a wedding and they announced plans to get married. My grandparents tried very hard to talk them out of it and even encouraged a long engagement, but my mum was having none of it. It caused a terrible row, which only served to make my mother even more determined. For his part, my dad was happy to go along with it. He was treated to cook meals, and my grandmother Sadie would make him pack lunches to take to work. She would even do some of his laundry. Added to that, my grandfather Charlie would take him to play snooker once a week in the local club. It was a bonding experience he had never had with his own family. It was what he'd been longing for. On the 11th of November, 1976, less than 6 months after they'd first met, my 16-year-old mum and 17-year-old dad were married at Martha Street Register Office. The first few months of married life really was a honeymoon period. My mother was adamant she wanted to be mistress of her own home and embarked on a mission to find a flat. She'd spent weeks writing to community councillors, the local members of parliament and as many people as she could think of asking for help. Eventually, they were offered a couple of rooms in an old tenement block. The flat needed a lot of work, but they grabbed the opportunity with both hands and set about trying to make it into a home with bits and pieces donated by friends and relatives. Every weekend, my dad would be out performing in pubs, clubs, at weddings, or any kind of gig that would provide a few extra pounds in his pocket and maybe lead to the big time. Show business became everything to my dad. He was always trying to go that stage further, to get a unique sound or different look for the band he was playing in. More than a few times, he'd managed to get fired from his day job. One time, he borrowed the works van and slopped off early on a Friday afternoon to drive the band and all its equipment hundreds of miles across the country to play in a pub somewhere. By the time he got back to Glasgow, it was almost dawn, but he decided to try and grab a couple of hours sleep. Unfortunately, his 8 AM alarm failed and he didn't wake up until 9:30. When he looked out the window of his flat, the van was gone. He was ecstatic, as now he thought he had the perfect excuse for being late for work. Somebody had stolen the van. However, when he phoned work to tell them the news, he learned it was his boss that had picked up the van at 8 AM that morning, and he was sacked again. His constant absences also took their toll on my mother. She started drinking more, going out with her pals, or hosting parties in the flat while my dad was away. Inevitably, they started to argue and fight. They would break up and one of them would move out, but within a few weeks, they would inevitably get back together. At one point, my dad got a flat of his own, but my mum kept coming round and causing a scene if he wouldn't let her in. He claims that more than once she kicked the door in to gain access to his flat while he was out, and would be lying in his bed sleeping by the time he returned from the gig. Each time they broke up, it became harder to get back together. They both cheated on each other during their separations, and when the drink flowed, those indiscretions would be used as weapons in arguments that would blow up, seemingly out of nowhere. During one of their many reconciliations, my brother Craig was conceived, so they got back together. For a time at least they were happy. My mum was pregnant and wasn't drinking, while Dad had newfound responsibilities. When Craig was born in April 1981, they got a new council flat in Castlemilk and managed to stay together for about a year. Although there were still plenty of arguments and tantrums, eventually the old destructive patterns began again. There was one weekend when my mum took off following an argument, leaving Craig with my dad. On the Sunday morning, there wasn't any food in the flat, so he put my brother in the pram and walked to the shops. My mum had come back and emptied the place. When he got back, everything in the house was gone. It got to the point they couldn't have a civilised conversation because too much water had passed under the bridge. They'd caused each other too much pain. I have no doubt my parents clearly cared for each other in their own peculiar ways. They just couldn't live together.